living the Dharma in everyday life as an enlightened one. When one speaks of living the Dharma, people often imagine practitioners who leave the world behind, retreat into the forest, and sever all ties of family and society. They believe that only by abandoning every worldly bond can one attain enlightenment. But this is the view of a mind still bound by conditions. If the way only appears when everything is quiet and still, then it is too weak to walk through life. A truly enlightened being need not withdraw from the world. They live among others just like anyone else, yet their mind is no longer carried away by circumstances. They neither reject their roles nor evade responsibilities, nor do they adopt the outward guise of a practitioner. They simply live fully in each moment, letting the Dharma naturally permeate every word, every action, every breath. They need not prove anything or uphold a particular image. When the mind is luminous, every expression becomes the way, whether playing with their child, cooking a meal, working under pressure, or comforting someone in pain. There is no need to manufacture peace, for they are no longer influenced by unease. Living the Dharma in the world is not about striving to be good or pursuing lofty ideals. It is that when insight is clear and the heart is mature, there is no other way but to live with honesty, authenticity, awareness, and compassion. Perhaps, then, it is more accurate to say that it is not they who live the Dharma amid life, but that the Dharma lives through them, quietly and naturally. The first element to kindle is moment-to-moment awareness in daily life. It is not extended meditation sessions that define the way, nor deep Dharma talks that make one a practitioner, but the seemingly trivial moments. If you are fully present in them, that moment itself is the path. Awareness is the foundation of every practice, yet many misunderstand it. Some think it requires intense concentration, rigid discipline, or a constant state of vigilance. True awareness, however, is a natural, effortless presence. It does not mean being exhausted by noticing everything. It means clearly seeing what is happening now without being swept away by it. For example, when washing your face in the morning, instead of letting your mind worry about the day ahead, pause. Feel the cool water touching your skin. Hear the gentle trickle of the faucet. Notice the morning light filtering through the window. Though small, if you are fully present, that moment can be profound. No past, no future, no rushing self, just life touching life. To the untrained eye, this may seem insignificant, but through persistent practice, each small action becomes a gateway to peace. We can only truly live in the present, not in memories, not in imagination. Lose this moment, and you lose your life. Moment-to-moment awareness requires no special conditions. A mother preparing a meal can manifest the same wisdom as a hermit on a mountain if she is truly present with every chop, every stir, every arrangement, seeing not merely work, but life expressing itself through her hands. Then each act becomes a living ritual, free of formalities. One who lives the Dharma in the world does not wait for extraordinary moments to practice. They recognize that the way is not distant from reality, but resides in the overlooked. Awareness is how they bring light back to familiar shadows. Eating with awareness of eating, walking with awareness of walking, speaking with awareness of speaking, observing the mind before, during, and after action. That very seeing distinguishes mindful living from living on autopilot. Imagine a driver stopped at a red light amid heavy traffic. Rather than anxiously checking the clock, honking, or grumbling, he relaxes his shoulders, softens his grip on the wheel, and exhales slowly. In those few seconds, he needs neither to go anywhere nor to do anything, just to be fully present amid the urban noise, yet serene within. No one around notices his inner state, but he knows he is no longer carried away. He is at ease amid urgency. This is not a special act. In such ordinariness, the way is lived, not through words, but through a deep return to oneself. When awareness becomes habitual, one perceives a miracle. It is not circumstances that cause suffering, but the absence of mind within them. A person may find themselves amid chaos and stress, yet if the mind is fully present, that place can be a sanctuary. Conversely, one in a tranquil setting with a distracted mind still dwells in suffering. That is seeing life as it is, unclouded by thought. When we live thus, every moment becomes material for practice. There is no need to painstakingly uphold precepts, for right mindfulness naturally leads to right action. No need for long meditation sessions to feel we are practicing, for each ordinary task carried out with awareness is practice. In sum, moment-to-moment awareness is the bridge between the Dharma and life. When we are fully present, life ceases to be an obstacle and becomes the way. We need not wait for favorable conditions, an empty mind, or ample time. Living fully in this moment is the Dharma living through us. Once awareness underpins each moment, our living, speaking, behaving, and thinking will gradually be illuminated by the light of wisdom. One of the most vital expressions of living the Dharma in the world is honesty and integrity. This is not merely a moral quality, but also a sign of one's level of mindfulness and inner steadfastness. Honesty means living in alignment with truth, the truth within oneself and the truth in one's relationship with life. Integrity means not trading one's conscience for approval, not compromising what is right even if it brings immediate gain. People like this do not try to polish their image by saying pleasant things or behaving to meet popular expectations. They dare to live as they are and stand for what is right, even if it sometimes means being misunderstood, hurt, or disliked. This authenticity is not a blunt, thoughtless honesty, but a compassionate frankness. They have the courage to speak the truth, yet they know when and how to speak, so as not to sow unnecessary wounds. Those who live genuinely wear no mask. They do not feel the need to play the role of the good person, the kind person, or the virtuous person if their inner state is not truly at peace. They do not live to maintain an image, but to keep their heart pure and their conscience clear. Integrity, too, is not rigidity or inflexibility, but the refusal to bend one's values under external pressure. A person of integrity may adapt fluidly in their actions, but deep down they never betray what they know is right. They decline to use underhanded tactics even if those would be effective. They refuse to utter lies even if those would be pleasant to hear. They choose the path of honesty because they see clearly that falsehoods only sow more suffering, however tempting the short-term gains. One more important point: the truthful person is honest not only with others, but also with themselves. This is the hardest part, recognizing when you are deceiving yourself, when you are painting an idealized image to cover your insecurities. A Dharma practitioner sees this without needing to justify, and they are not afraid to acknowledge their own imperfections, for that very recognition is the seed of transformation. In today's social environment, where lies can become tools for advancement and personal images are intricately crafted to evoke admiration, a person who lives with authenticity and integrity is a silent yet powerful presence. They do not preach the Dharma in words, but their life itself is a living Dharma talk. They do not extol faith, yet they inspire belief. They seek no recognition, yet those who meet them sense their purity and steadiness. Thus, authenticity and integrity are not mere personal choices, but ways to live with wisdom and love, ways to avoid drifting in life's artificial currents. Whether laborer or leader, homemaker or entrepreneur, such a person can become the moral foundation of their community. That is how an enlightened being lives the Dharma in the world, not through theory or words, but through truth and embodiment. Once living authentically and with integrity, the practitioner no longer needs to hide or embellish themselves with any facade. They no longer strive to assert the self, protect their reputation, or seek acclaim. From this place, non-self and humility arise naturally, not as moral feats, but because the self has been clearly seen and gently released. On that foundation, the heart of service arises spontaneously, not out of duty or reputation, but because the inner mind is filled with understanding and love. Non-self does not mean an extreme denial of the self, nor a loss of responsibility or direction. Rather, it is the absence of a clinging self, one that seeks to win, to stand out, to be remembered. When that self softens, one lives lightly, no longer reacting hastily to praise or blame, gain or loss, right or wrong. They can undertake important roles without feeling important, accomplish great works without claiming credit. From that mind of non-self, humility requires no effort. It is a natural consequence. One with true insight does not need to appear small. They simply have no reason to seem great in others' eyes. They neither seek admiration nor avoid being misunderstood. They quietly do what must be done, say what must be said, then withdraw like a guest who has completed their visit. Such a person bows without hesitation, apologizes without pride, learns from the young without shame, and endures unjust criticism without bitterness. They are not bound by notions of who they are, and so are not constrained by positions, titles, or social judgments. Imagine someone who works silently for years, a teacher who quietly supports struggling students, a child who cares tenderly for an ailing parent with no complaint, a driver who carries passengers daily with respect and a smile. No one praises them in the media, no statues commemorate them, no names are etched in stone. Yet their presence, filled with non-self and service, is the Dharma living in the world. The value of selfless service lies not in the scale of the deed, but in a heart free from attachment to self-image in that deed. The practitioner does not give charity to gain fame, does not share the Dharma to be seen as a teacher, does not care for others to earn the label of good person. They act because it is right, because the conditions are ripe, and because each act is itself an opportunity to let go of the self. The Dharma practitioner cultivates within life itself. They practice through bowing, through bearing burdens, through quietly walking beside those who suffer, without trying to fix them or lead them, simply being present as a mindful, peaceful presence, free of expectation. If there is an image that captures this, it is someone lighting a lamp in the dark, not to be seen, but so that others may see the path ahead. That is the truest non-self. Live in service. Be present not to leave a mark, but to dissolve into the flow of life, mindfully and quietly. When non-self and humility take root, compassion and loving-kindness need no cultivation. They flow naturally like water from a spring, like fragrance from a flower. But unlike pity or conventional kindness, the compassion of an enlightened being is a force that wells from wisdom, seeing clearly the nature of suffering in all and realizing that none are truly separate. That love does not spring from a stance of, I am a good person helping the unfortunate, nor does it take the form of charity or moral superiority. One does not help because the other is pitiable, but because one sees their suffering as if it were one's own. There is no division between helper and helped. There is only a single stream of life that has become obstructed, and the presence of compassion simply clears that stream, nothing more and nothing less. Such love is not tied to fleeting emotion. It does not depend on mood or personal relationship. It is mindful caring in which each action is guided not by liking or disliking, but by clearly seeing what is needed, what is wholesome, what is appropriate. Sometimes compassion embraces, sometimes it releases. Sometimes it supports, sometimes it allows another to stumble and grow. True compassion does not blindly intervene, but moves together with wisdom, knowing when to stop, when to act, when to remain silent. A Dharma-living person need not travel the world doing charity to practice compassion. They need only to listen wholeheartedly to whoever speaks, without judging, without interrupting, without correcting. That alone is compassion. When they patiently wait for a loved one to calm their anger without responding in anger, that too is compassion. When they share a meal with a homeless person without thinking, I have done something good, but simply see a basic need met by a human hand, that compassion is as pure as early morning light, nameless yet soothing to the heart. Thus, compassion is not a specific act, but a quality that soaks into every deed. One living the way in the world may be teaching, selling goods, running a company, or caring for elderly parents. Yet if they act with an open heart and boundless love that makes no distinction of worthiness, every action becomes a practice of compassion. Such love does not fear exploitation, for it is not offered for recognition or to warm the ego. It shines like light from a lamp, asking no one if they need it and expecting no gratitude. And if misunderstood or betrayed, they still preserve a kind heart, because their deeds spring not from external conditions, but from an inner freedom that has let go of reasons to close the heart. Therefore, a Dharma-living person does not rush to accomplish great deeds. A small act carried out with clear compassion has greater power to spread than 1,000 calls to action. A knowing glance without judgment, a timely hand to hold, a single step back so another can move forward. When such gestures arise from unbound compassion, that is the Dharma living deeply in the world. If you ever find your compassion running dry, do not blame yourself. Quietly return to nurture understanding. Understand both another's suffering and your own limits. For compassion is not the strength of feeling, but the fruit of wisdom. When you see clearly that everyone suffers in some way and that everyone needs a bit of light and gentle silence to pass through darkness, then you, one who has known suffering, can be that light, not by words, but by mindful, gentle presence. When love is awakened by wisdom, one living the way realizes a fundamental truth. Life does not operate according to our will. All things arise and pass according to their own conditions, not waiting for us to be ready or to obey our ego's wishes. In that context, a subtle yet vital capacity must be developed: acceptance of reality and letting go in order to find peace. It is not that the enlightened do not suffer. They too are betrayed, lose loved ones, fall ill, are misunderstood, learn to release. But the difference is they no longer thrash about in ignorance. They do not repeat the question, "Why me?" They do not torment themselves with "if only things had been different." They do not cling to "what if I could turn back time?" They see things as they are and let go of the imaginings, expectations, and resistances that bind the mind. Acceptance does not mean resignation or giving up. Acceptance is a dignified awareness. When we stop using energy to resist what has come, knowing that whatever happens arises from sufficient causes whether or not we like it, the mind gains the chance to move beyond suffering. By contrast, the more we fight reality, the deeper we sink into illusion and hardship. Imagine a mother who has lost her child. No words can describe such grief. But if she buries herself in regret and judgment of fate, that grief becomes an unhealing wound. When she begins to see that birth and death both belong to the flow of life, that presence and departure are expressions of conditioned arising, then her heart can start to accept what cannot be changed. From that acceptance, she does not forget her child, but is no longer swallowed by suffering. She continues living more deeply, more lightly, more gratefully for what remains. Letting go is similar. It is not discarding or turning away from life, but releasing attachment, releasing the craving to control everything, releasing the expectation that life must always go our way. The Dharma living person knows that all things will change. They do not grasp at anything, even what once brought happiness. Nothing lasts forever, not even the best moments. And because they see this, they cherish the present and let go more easily of what passes. Letting go need not be grand. Sometimes it is letting go of a point of contention during an argument to preserve calm for both. Sometimes it is letting go of a self-image one has tried so hard to construct in order to live more honestly and lightly. Sometimes it is releasing unanswerable questions so that one may live fully in what is. Each right release widens the heart and lightens the spirit. The Dharma living person does not fear loss. They only fear living without presence, without seeing, without ease. They do not cling to what must stay, nor cling to what is past. They move with life like water flowing gently around stones or falling over cliffs without losing direction, knowing that what arrives will arrive and what departs will depart, as long as the mind remains clear and lightly released. Then whether amid suffering or joy, they remain at peace within. Acceptance and letting go do not make us weak. On the contrary, they are the silent inner strength of one who clearly sees impermanence and is no longer manipulated by life. They need not control to feel secure. They need not have everything go their way to feel happy. They need not win, need not cling, need not be superior. Only to live rightly, see clearly, and let go with ease. That is enough. After learning to accept and let go, the Dharma living person begins to view suffering in an entirely different light. Suffering is no longer the enemy, no longer something to avoid, no longer a burden to cast off. Instead, suffering becomes the material for growth, the very ground in which wisdom takes root. And the more one absorbs this teaching, the more one can transform suffering into an inner light that endures deeply. It is not that they no longer feel pain, but that they know how to enter into their pain with a different mindset. They are neither driven away by it nor smother it with reasoning or blind faith. They face it in quiet observation, and thus the pain becomes a stern yet honest teacher, revealing truths that joy never could. In life, everyone experiences loss. The loss of loved ones, love itself, trust, health. Such pains, if left unilluminated, will leave scars and close the heart. Yet approached with mindful awareness and non-judgmental seeing, suffering will gradually dissolve and leave behind a new perspective on life. For example, one who has been betrayed in love, if consumed by resentment, will close themselves off and doubt everyone. But if they quietly look into that pain, they may see that they expected too much, that they once loved not with mindfulness but with neediness. From this insight, they learn to love without possession, to trust without blindness, to give without sacrificing their own worth. The pain that once wounded them becomes a profound lesson, teaching them how to live and love with maturity. A Dharma-living person never lets their suffering pass in vain. They delve into it, not to torture themselves, but to uncover what could never have been seen in moments of ease. And when wisdom begins to sprout from that fertile soil of suffering, they are no longer who they were. They grow deeper, quieter, fewer in words yet brighter in gaze and softer in heart. They need not recount what they have overcome. Their very presence suffices to convey that something has been transformed at the deepest level. Transformation is not about moving on too quickly, but about staying long enough to fully understand what is happening. No explanation is needed, no argument. Only the courage to remain with oneself amidst the ruins. Then one day, a green shoot will arise from the ashes. This is not a replacement, but a leap into depth. And from those comprehended wounds, they see others with greater compassion. They no longer rush to judge, for they know that everyone suffers in their own way. They know that each person bears some burden. Having walked through darkness without closing the heart, they become a small light for others lost in their own pain. Suffering is not a dead end. It is merely a sharp turn on the path of awakening. If you traverse it with awareness, you will not return unchanged. You will not be better or wiser, but gentler, lighter, deeper. And that is the second wisdom, not found in books or taught by others, but born from life itself, touched and understood by your own heart. Then you no longer fear suffering, for you know that within every pain lies a doorway into the depth of the way. And you, living in the world, step through that door one life step at a time. Finally, when letting go reaches the root, when freedom is no longer a state but a way of being, what remains is not a person living the Dharma, but the knowing itself that all unfolds without the idea, I am living the Dharma. You may not know you are enlightened, nor call yourself mindful, yet in every glance, every breath, every step, that knowing is present as if life itself moves without a driver. Not because you strive to live well, but because no self remains to sway how you live. Then Dharma is no longer a path to walk, but a silent foundation seeping into every action. No preaching is needed, no one to name or praise. Yet wherever you go, you leave behind something clearer, quieter, not through words but through the unconditional presence of knowing. That knowing takes no side, speaks no right or wrong, teaches no one what to do. But anyone who has the affinity, when near, will awaken their own light. Not through doctrine, not through form, but through direct experience of an unconditioned life. No word issues from desire to prove, only from the emptiness of clear seeing. No act aims for approval, only because it must be done, and once done, it is released. Such naturalness is Dharma. Spreading no longer becomes a goal, yet Dharma still spreads. Enlightenment is no longer a concept, yet clarity remains. That is light without lamp, Dharma without letters, knowing without owner, living through one no longer bound by self. And only then, when you do not see yourself as practicing Dharma, does Dharma live most fully in the world. If any word in this video touches you, perhaps you are not listening to a sermon, but remembering yourself before roles, identities, and pursuits arose.